So those of you who have pulled it by now know that Shout is really, really, really good. And you can kind of see how physical teams are starting to pull away from Mage teams. But that's just the... Like, obviously physical teams are better. Physical soul breaks generally do more damage. Physical attacks have more additional benefits to them. But just because physical teams are better, just if you're comparing best case scenarios, doesn't mean that Mage teams are bad or not viable or anything like that. A Mage team can absolutely clear, I won't say all content, because obviously you're not going to bring a Mage team to the Combat Nightmare and succeed, because it has like 100,000 resistance, you'll do 5 damage. But in any fight that isn't specifically gimmicked around doing purely physical damage, a Mage team is viable. It's not ideal necessarily, but it's viable. And tonight is intended to show you how to go about making, building, gearing, honing for a good Mage team. So, what are the elements of a Mage team? Well, clearly, we're talking about mages. So how do you pick your mages? This is not the screen I want. So for mage characters, specifically damaging mage characters, we're talking characters with one or more of 3 skill sets. You want high, either 4 or 5 star black magic, 4 or 5 star summoning magic, and or 5 star darkness, which we don't have in global yet, but we'll get soon. Black magic is the most utilitarian and also easiest to find of those 3 skill sets. VV is the quintessential black mage, if I can find him here. VV. So VV has extremely high magic, terrible hit points, terrible defense, extremely high resistance, low to middling speed, terrible attack, etc. This is your absolute baseline black mage. Black mages specialize in dealing elemental damage and in applying status effects. Okay, so the next type of mage that you might want for your mage team is a summoner. Picking Rydia here, even though she does have Black Magic 5, she's also a summoner. Summoners tend to have mostly the same sets of stats. Or actually, I should say there's 2 kinds of summoner. There's the Rydia type, which is the Black Mage summoner, which tend to have very similar kind of stat lines to VV. And then there's the Echo type, which are the White Mage summoners, which tend to have more balanced magic in mind. Similarly bad hit points, defense, and very good resistance. There are actually reasons to pick either type of summoner, which I will get into in a little bit when we actually get into team composition. And by the way, if anyone ever has any questions, please feel free to just break in. I am watching chat, and I'm more than happy to answer questions. Anyway, so summoners specialize in AoE damage. Matter of fact, the only single target summons worth mentioning are Chocobo and Orthros. For the most part, you're going to be doing Balfour, Alexander, Bahamut, AoE summons. They can do some elemental damage, but honestly, unless you really need elemental damage on all targets, generally speaking, a black mage is more really what you're after. Then there's darkness mages. We don't have any darkness mages yet, just because darkness as a skill set does not exist yet in global. The big thing with darkness mages Golbez, Exdeath, Kuja, Idia are the primary ones of those. They get access to the only single target multi-hit skill, magic skill in the game, which is Dark Zone. Once you have it fully powered up, it is about 50% stronger than Jaw level black magic spell. And since it does its damage every 2 hits, it can max out at 20,000 damage, where all black magic spells, except for Meltdown eventually, cap out at 10,000 damage. That's why Darkness is such a valuable skill set, is because it lets you accelerate your damage and get more bang for your buck, essentially. Oh, right, Vincent. Yes, Vincent is another extremely good Darkness mage. Actually, Vincent is probably the single best mage in the game, in my opinion. I will go into that in just a little bit once we get into team composition, or specific team composition. Okay, so the next element of your mage team is your healer. There are a couple of different strategies you can take for healer in your mage team. As with any team, you really want an AoE heal. I consider that to be possibly the most vital single soul break to have in an ultimate fight as an AoE heal. Sephiroth unfortunately can't do much in the way of casting. Vincent's Super Soul Break is good, but it's not the reason why he's the best mage. Matter of fact, his Cloak is a better Soul Break, and I'll go into that. Healers. So, you want to have an AoE heal, but there are a lot of, you don't necessarily need that AoE heal on your actual character with the Curaga spell. You do probably want a character with Curaga just to handle burst damage and spot healing. But there are a lot of characters who qualify as either black mages or summoners or darkness casters who can also take Curaga. Kuja's an example, Exdeath's an example, Yuna's an example, Eiko's an example. So you don't necessarily need to have, you can take Yuna as a summoner and just give her Balfour and Madeline or whatever summons you want to put on her. And then once she's charged up, she can use him in the face if you happen to have him in the face, or whichever healer soul breaks you have. Another example, for those who pulled on Banner 5 and got consolation prizes, is Yuffie. She may not be what you think of for a mage, but in the right fight and with the right gear, ninja spells can actually do a lot of damage. I was using Yuffie earlier today, and I was getting 7,000 damage against Boris, the +++ boss in the Eternal Calm event, with equipping Red Armlet and Fire Veil with Focus Up. So don't discount the ability of ninja magic to deal reasonable damage against against weakness targets. It's not going to do very good damage against things that aren't weak to the element. And if you have Clear Tranquil, I consider this the best AoE heal in the game. And it makes Yuffie an absolutely excellent AoE healer. Ramza is actually in a very, very, very similar position. He can also use 3-star ninja magic, and he can use instruments and mage swords. If you have Golbez's axe, he can use that. So, don't think that your healer has to be a white mage with an AoE heal soul break. Don't think that the character who's carrying Curaga also has to be the character with the AoE heal. And then the last element of a mage team which is an optional element, is a support. This is another spot where Ramsey can fill in, especially since he can actually cast potentially reasonable AoE elemental damage. But the thing is, with a mage team, a lot of time you are actually relying more on burning the enemy down quickly. Like, mage teams are generally less tanky and less able to endure long fights because you're reliant on your hones, on your abilities. So once you run out of abilities, you aren't doing any damage. So for a mage team, a lot of times it may be more viable for you to just slot in a fourth pure damage character rather than, or a character like Ramza who can do both a single breakdown or a full break and a offensive magical ability, rather than someone like Edward, who the reason why you might pick Edward we'll go into later in this segment. But someone like Edward who can really only carry breaks. On the other hand, there are some boss fights where you're really, really, really going to want to break down, and even a full break plus breakdown. So the support slot is kind of a flex slot. Some fights you're going to want to have a support. Some fights you're going to be better off without a support. All right, so that's characters, or at least character archetypes. Abilities. What kind of abilities do you want on a mage team? Well, I mean, that seems kind of obvious. Obviously, like, all your black mages are going to want, if you're doing AoE, you're going to want Ruinga and or Quake. Probably more Ruinga than Quake, but a lot of us already have Quake somewhat honed. You're going to want Jaws, at least to rank 3. Preferably rank 4, really, if you're going to do a full-bore mage team, because you really don't want to run out. Another key black mage ability is Drain Gut. This ability is actually really, 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 really good for mage teams. It's less damaging than other 4-star black magic spells. It's only 700 or 800 potency compared to 900 potency for like Fire Aga. But what it does is it gives you 100% of the hit points you deal back, which means it's generally, or not 100%, excuse me, 40%, 30%, somewhere around. It gives you a portion of the hit points you deal back as health, which for most mages is going to be a full or nearly full heal. And that is incredibly valuable. It's because that means as long as your mage can survive whatever hits them, one attack, they can just drain and be back to full or nearly full health. If you're going hardcore on a mage team, I would suggest all of your, like, having a drain gut for each of your black mages. You won't always need them, but for the fights you do need them, you'll really be happy having one for everybody. For summoners, there aren't as many options. Balefore is generally the most recommended workhorse summon because it is cheaper to hone, depending on how you look at it. Cheaper to hone than Madwin, the other non-elemental AoE option. Madwin uses less orbs total if you count Balefor's major wind orbs as 10 orbs each, which you probably should. But it's entirely non-elemental and summon orbs, so it's really kind of harsh to make a 5-star version. You'll want a 5-star or a not 5-star, rank 5 version of each of the elemental summons, but probably only one of each unless you're running multiple summoners. And you'll probably also want at least a rank 1 or rank 2 Carbuncle, because this is very useful in a lot of fights. Another option if you have the orbs to do it, is Orthros. Orthros does the same potency of damage as Balefore and Maduin. It's also non-elemental. It also carries the blind chance, although that's not usually relevant. It is only single target, but it has the benefit of, for now, being multiple hits. That becomes less valuable in the future, because Balefore and Maduin will also get buffed to be multiple hits for the same amount of damage total. But, like, don't completely throw Orthros out the window for that reason. If you're running multiple summoners, or if you don't want to, like, if you want 2 non-elemental summons and you don't want to do Maduin, Orthros is perfectly fine as a second summon. For your healer, I don't have one on this team, but for your healer, generally you're going to run Kiraja plus either Diaga/Holy or a utility spell. Usually a utility spell. Shelga, Protectka, Sloga. Your healer actually almost has the most restricted skill build, because you're almost always, unless you're running Carbuncle, you're always going to want Kiraja. And if you are running Carbuncle, you're going to want a source of AoE regen. So if you don't have that through a Soul Break, you're going to want to stick Kirin or Memento of Freyr on your healer. And if you are running Carbuncle, you honestly might even run 5 non-healer characters and just rely on an AoE heal Soul Break from a DPS character, because you're not going to be able to spot heal. And then for your support, we already kind of went over this a little bit. The ideal support for a mage team is a character who can carry a breakdown or dance. Dances work perfectly fine as well. And a magic attack, or possibly, if you're running like Mog or Pinello, a breakdown/dance and a heal. You can actually combine your support that way, for the record. It's one of the reasons why Mog is very, very, very good. It's because he is a very tanky, competent healer who can also provide full dance support. And that's a way to actually get some support abilities onto a team with 4 attackers. So keep that in mind. One other ability to keep in mind for a mage team is Manaspian. There are currently in Global multiple Faceska effects, which are an effect which increases the entire party's magic stat by 20%. We don't currently have any 30% Facekas, but there are 2 of them coming down the pipeline in the several months from now. I think the first one's going to be like 4 months out. But until we get to the 30% ones, Manaspian is actually a very, very, very viable alternative, because it's 15% magic to the entire party, which is only a little tiny bit off from the percent you'd get from, say, Garnet's Leviathan or Kefka's Magic Infusion. If you don't have one of those Soul Breaks and don't want to Roaming Warrior one, definitely consider Manapan, because it will increase your damage a lot. And there are a few characters that have bards that you can fit in. Kefka can use Manapan. Aiko can use Manapan. Edward can, although if you're using Edward, it's probably several months down the line and you have his haste merch. I know there's another one that I'm forgetting, but it's only... Thancred can use Manapan, and he's also a ninja, so you can also use him as an AoE mage if you need to. Desh, coming out soon, can use Manapan and is a 5-star black mage. So just keep that in mind. Keep Manapan in mind, because it gives you flexibility with your Roaming Warrior. Alright, so that's abilities. Future abilities to watch out for. There aren't very many. There hasn't been a lot of support for mages in Japan since where we're at now. The two big ones, well, there's three big ones. Coming in Kuja's event, which is a month and a half-ish out, I want to say, maybe 2 months, is the two mage-oriented darkness skills, Memento Mori and Dark Zone. Memento Mori gives the caster 30% extra magic and gives them a 45-second doom timer, and also does a fair amount, I want to say 800 potency, but I may be wrong there, which is a little bit worse than normal Jaw spells, of dark damage to one target. And then, well, and you might be thinking, well, it dooms me. Why would I want to use that? Well, the 5-star magical darkness ability is Dark Zone. At its base level, Dark Zone does 2 times 450 potency hits, which is exactly the same as a Jaw spell, except over 2 hits instead of 1. However, if you are doomed, that damage increases by 50% to 675 times 2, which is, of course, 50% stronger than a standard 4-star Black Mage spell. And done over 2 hits, that means you can easily break the damage cap on it. Dark Zone is the most powerful, readily honable black or offensive magic spell in the game. Bahamut is actually stronger, I believe, once it gets buffed. But of course, Bahamut is kind of a bear to hone. Because it only gets half as many uses per home, so you really need it up to rank 4 or 5, whereas Dark Zone is competent at rank 2 or 3. So that's future abilities. Again, there are, one more. Once we get to the second Black Mage Abyss, which is in 6 months, keep in mind, the second Black Mage 6-star ability is Meltdown, which is 3 400-ish potency hits to a single target, fire, wind, and earth damage. The way multiple element damage works is it picks the most favorable. So if an enemy is fire immune and earth immune, it would deal wind damage, and it would deal full damage. And it's also, as I said, it's a triple hit spell, so it is actually the most powerful black magic in the game by a pretty fair amount. So for those of you who have beaten the Black Mage Abyss and are eyeing Ultima and wondering whether you want to make it, I would advise against it. Ultima is not nearly as good as Meltdown is, and you'll want to save, in my opinion, you'll want to save those black crystals for Meltdown. It is a much stronger ability, in my opinion. Yes, exactly, Mata. So, that's abilities. Now, record materia. What kind of record materia do you want from mages? That kind of depends on what kind of fight you're gearing for. If you're going through a story dungeon, you're going to want to use at least probably one character with Mana Spring and one character with Summoning Spring, because you're going to have multiple trash stages to clear with AoEs. That's just kind of an RM tax for a mage team doing a dungeon. Unless you have really high homes, like if you have rank 5 4-star spells, feel free to go ahead otherwise. The other record materias you're going to want to focus on for mages are Dr. Monk's Teachings and Mako Might are obviously powerful. These are less good for story dungeons because you're probably going to get some soul break gauge anyway. But for event bosses, they're extremely good. Double cast abilities are excellent for when your mage, like you have enough buffs on your mages or you're hitting weaknesses such that you're already breaking 9,000 damage before considering record materia. Blood of Espers has about a 12%, 13% chance to cast a black magic spell twice when you use one. the way that works out is basically if you're within roughly 10% of capping the spell, it's more beneficial to use Blood of Espers instead of a plus magic or plus damage record materia. If you're only dealing about 8,000 damage, everything else considered, go for something like Devotion, or something like, I don't have it saved, but something like Witch's Successor, which is just straight plus 50% damage with black magic. For something that's actually a little even more in favor of these double casts, because this one is 20%, probably to compensate for summons having less uses per host. On the other hand, summons also get double hit capability soon-ish, in the next 2 months, which will push it back towards you wanting to use magic. So for now, having double cast summon, Blood of the Summoner, is better than Devotion, probably, because summons also hit harder than Jaw spells. But once summons get their double hit buff, you are unlikely to be hitting 2 times 10,000 damage with them. So it is kind of probably more better for you to use Devotion or Eidolon's Bond. Speaking of which, Devotion is the best record materia for increasing magic damage straight up. It's plus 20% magic, which translates to about 35% extra damage. So as long as you're not hitting the cap, this is the best for you. If you're going into a fight, there's also double cast white coming, Lada, by the way. I don't think we have that yet. I think we're getting it soon. Oh no, we just got it with Devout. There's a double cast white. Double cast white is also kind of good for your healer because it lets you get off 2 heal spells at the same time. And the healer record materials are not great. If you want the extra magic, but are worried about your defensive stats, Vow of Vengeance is great. It's half the positive effect of Devotion, but you lose attack instead, which is not usually relevant for mages. Other possibilities, Ace Striker is good on someone like Yuffie, who's hitting a weakness and has a soul break you want to use a lot. Witch's Successor, which is Renoa's third record materia, is just straight up plus 15% black magic damage. That one's also very good because you're not giving up anything for it. You're not getting much benefit from it, but if you need your attack and you need your defenses, it's a good alternative. I am not personally a fan of Attunement. Some people say it's good, but even Attunement 2 is only 20% damage when hitting a weakness, which you can get in a variety of other ways. Knight's Charge, that is Steiner's, right? Hold on. Let me get down here. Rodmaster's another alternative. It's only 10% more damage with black magic, but you're going to have a rod equipped most likely. I could have sworn I gotten. Yeah, Knight's Charge. This is not great for a mage party, because you really don't want your mages to be tanking hits. If you're doing something special, like doing a Draw Fire Drenga on Golbez, this can be good, but like Golbez doesn't really have a soul break you're going to want to be using that often. The only time I would probably consider Knight's Charge is if I'm doing like a Draw Fire build on Ramza, and you have Ramza's AoE heal. That would be a potential use for this. Otherwise, I would stick to Ace Striker, and for those who don't know, Ramza's RN2 is a copy of Ace Striker. think that white mage healer RMs, really, generally speaking, you're going to want to stick to either Dr. Mog's teachings, if that's also your AoE healer. Ace Striker is another alternative if you don't think you're going to need the AoE heal right away. Or you're going to want to, like, if you're not using that one of those, there's really not much. The ones that boost healing are pretty minuscule, and unless you're using Diaga, the holy damage ones aren't going to get you a lot of benefit either. Double cast white magic from Devout and from Porom in the future, although Devout is better. It's a good alternative once you can get that. It's not something you can rely on ever, but it's really, really nice when the boss hits you with a big AoE and you cast a Curaja on your healer that double casts and heals 2 people to full. That can save a fight, and it's not like you're giving anything up. So that's a really good alternative for your healer. For your support, it really depends on how the support is built. For the most part, you're going to want the same sorts of record materials as the mages want for them. Either if they have a good soul breaking you right away, you're going to want to make up might on them. Or if not, you're probably going to want to boost their damage or give them a haste materia if you really, really, really want them to get their breakout quick. The New Japan event should be in 3 hours. Or not event, but dungeon update, yeah. So RMs. Equipment. What kind of equipment are you looking for mage teams? Well, for the most part, mages rely on rods and staves. Rods especially. There are some staves that have better magic than mind, and some rods that have better mind than magic, because the games can't decide which ones they want rods to be and which ones they want staves to be. For most of your mages, rods and staves are the best. For armor, hats are generally the best. They have extremely competitive magic, and they have good defensive stats compared to bracers. A little bit heavier on the resistance, but that's usually what you want anyway. There are some mages that have extra options. Kefka and Eiko and Thancred and Ramza can use instruments. Instruments are kind of rare, but if you have one, there are actually some really good characters that can use them to do magical damage. Kefka's is currently the best pure damage instrument, I believe. There are a bunch of mage characters. Let me just actually pull one in here. There are a bunch of mage characters who can use thrown weapons. Renoa is one, Hope is one, Yuffie is one. If you've got a good mage thrown weapon, like say Cardinal, or one of Hope's relics, that's a very good option for them. Mage thrown weapons usually have competitive magic and better attack than, which is rarely relevant, but sometimes it is, better attack than rods and staves. And then there are a very, very few characters who can benefit from swords. If you happen to have, it's not coming on the mind list. If you happen to have Terra's Enhancer or either of Ash's swords, then Golbez, Terra, Ash, Desh, Ramza, Thancred can use swords as well. It's a pretty short list, and half of them are ninjas, but it's another weapon option for you. That's something you're probably going to want to specifically pull for, but if you've got one, keep in mind that Golbez can use swords, Ash can use swords, a couple of the ninjas can use swords. Oh right, Desh does have a mage sword, you're right. And it gives him in Thunder, I think. And of course, there are some outlier weapons. Golbez has an axe, which Ramza can also use. Vincent has a gun, and Yuna has a gun, which Vincent, Yuna, and Ash can use. But those are pretty rare. They're very, like, there's only one mage axe and only 2 mage guns. So if you pull one of those, like, you're probably going to use another character it's meant for. So which relics should you look out for in the future? I mean, obviously, I'm telling you which relics are in the past that are good isn't really helpful because you either got them or you don't. The only one of those I'll point out for. Oh right, Mage Daggers. That is a good point, Sandslice. That's a very good point. Palam's event is coming up soon. I think it's 4 events out, or 5 events out, or 6 events out. It's coming. Palam has a Super Soul Break level Mage Dagger, which is any mage can use. Very useful for that. And then a lot farther down the line, Garnet also has a BSB Mage Dagger, which is also extremely useful as a stat stick for any mage whatsoever. However, the only mage relic that is a past relic that I want to specifically point out is Lulu's Hairpin. It is kind of a critical soul break for mage parties going forward because it is the only stacking AoE magic buff in the game. There are other stacking single target self-only magic buffs in the game, but Lulu's Hairpin is the only stacking AoE one. Unfortunately, we're at the mercy of Dana to get, or Dana, or however you pronounce the company, to get it in the future. There'll be a small chance to pull it on the second Black Mage Abyss, on the lucky banner for that. But outside of that, we're at the mercy of them to put it on Celebration banners. It has not appeared to date in any other events. Hopefully, the Pain event coming up next week in Japan will have Lulu's Hairpin, but I wouldn't DNA. That would make sense. I would not count on it, and even if I did, it's 6 months out from global, or 5 months out from global. So don't count on getting Lulu's Hairpin, getting focus, but keep an eye out for it on your friends list. And also, by the way, I will put up. I currently have focus as my roaming warrior. I'll show it to you now. So that those who want to do mage teams and don't have enough focus friends, this is my friend ID. Feel free to put it in and get yourself a focus. I won't change this, at least not for the foreseeable future. Focus, if you don't have focus, it's going to be more and more difficult to do mage team in the future because you're going to need that stacking magic buff to combat boss, increasing ultimate and ultimate plus resistances. Ultimate plus resistances get up into the 3,000 range, whereas most bosses currently have 600 resistance. So you really need that stacking buff. So if you don't have Lulu's Hairpin, you don't have focus, keep an eye out on your roaming warrior list and snap them up when you can. So future relics that we want for mage teams. Oh, come on. Nope, not that. That. Sorry, technical problems. I'm trying to bring up the relic list so I can go over specific banners that I think are good for mages in the future. Hello, Kilton. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Alright, so banners to consider in the future for mage teams. The first one I would consider, and keep in mind there aren't very many of these. Someone passed it. There aren't very many of these. Just like mage abilities, mage relics are kind of few and far between in the future. I've only got 7 banners I consider strong for mages here. Yeah, in all of the banners to come. So if you really are devoted to mage teams, you might want to save up for these. Alright, first one I consider a good mage banner is Celeste 2. This one is coming up this coming week, or within the next week. This has Terra's Super Soul Break, which is a first-gen Super Soul Break, but it is a multi-hit mage Super Soul Break, so it's very good, just for raw damage. It has Realm's Cat Ear Hood, which is a very good hat, if nothing else. Realm is a pretty good AoE, pretty good healer or summoner if you need that slot filled. This is not a bad soul break for her. It also has Keska's Cloak, which is one of 4 Heiska plus Feiska relics in the game in Japan. The only one currently available in Global. Those are very good things to have on your team, are the Heiska Feiska relics. And having one that's on an actual mage instead of a support is very nice. So this is the first one I consider like actually a serious mage banner. It also has, as a consolation prize, Celeste's Excalibur is extremely good. This is a Grand Cross. It's a black magic plus white magic runic plus some damage on top. Wing Edge is not great, and then these two are just okay. I mean, they're good mage armor, if nothing else. Next banner that I consider good is, where's my document? Palamon Porom. Specifically the second Palamon Porom banner, which is this one. This one is less good. It has, hold on. You can't quite see the whole thing. There we go. It has Rydia's Super Soul Break, which is a 6-hit, nearly guaranteed. Oh, no, this one is this one Odin? Anyway, it has Rydia's Super Soul Break, which is an AoE damage Soul Break. It has Fusoya's Soul Break, which is a Feiska in addition to damage. It has Rosa's AoE heal, which is not, this is not her good AoE heal, that's her Super Soul Break, but it's still an AoE heal. And it has Golbez's armor, which, while it's not a great Soul Break in and of itself, it's 2 hits with a chance to sap. Yeah, okay, thank you, Senslice. Yeah, this is Odin, which is 6 hits, lots of damage, basically guaranteed instant death available to it. And party defense stuff, which is very nice. Ebon Armor is very nice for those who didn't pull it on Banner 5. The Soul Break itself isn't great, but it has Darkness Up. It is the only, or one of very few armors in the game which give plus 20% darkness damage, which is great for Golbez and Exdeath casting Dark Zone. Palamporum event is, hold on. So Celeste event is next, then Vincent event, then Bosch event, then Adia event, and then Palamporum. So it's like 4 events away, or 5 events away. The next banner I consider a good Mage Relic banner. There are some, I'm skipping over some like Adia's banners. Let me point this out while we're here. Adia is a good mage because she has Black Mage 5 and Darkness 5, even if she's a bit defensively weak. But her banners, like, this is her Super Soul Break, but it's literally the only, well, there's also the, this is a mage throwing weapon. But aside from the generic weapon, this is the only mage relic on this banner. And then on this banner, we have Adia's Hasteska, Faithka, Selfie's good AoE heal, and then Renoa's In Earth dress, which is just not, it's the, like, this is a good relic, but the support, like the other relics on the banner aren't really great for a mage team. Is the problem with this one. So even though there's good individual relics, there's not a good banner around them, if you understand what I'm saying. So the next one I consider good, get this loaded up, is this one. This is Kuja's second banner. This one has Beatrix's sword, Super Soul Break sword, which is a good physical team weapon, but probably not a good magic team weapon. It has Garnet's Divine Guardian, which is an excellent support soul break to have on a character who can fill a offensive or healer slot. It has Kuja's Glove, which is an End Dark relic. It gives Attach Element Dark, which increases Dark Element damage by 50%, which means it's extremely good for a Dark Zone caster like Kuja. And it has Echo's AoE heal plus Hasteska relic. So this has 2 Hasteskas on it. And also 2 relics for characters who can fill either a healer or a DPS slot. And then it also has a Constellation Prize, Ice Damage Up, Staff, DPS Staff. This is actually a Black Mage weapon because Final Fantasy IX is one of those backwards games. But this is a Black Mage Staff with Ice Damage Up, which is nice to have. And then it has a Bracer, which usually have decent magic on them. So this is actually probably the best single mage banner coming up. If you're going to save up for one banner in the near future for the next festival, this is the one to save for, in my opinion. The next banner after Kuja is not for a while. The next one, so here's the festival banners. Don't expect these to be anywhere remotely resembling what they were in Japan. The next banner I consider a good mage banner is the Mobius ones actually might not be bad, except we're probably not going to get them. Scroll down. This one's another. This one's kind of borderline Renoa's BSB. It has Renoa's BSB, which is a first generation BSB, but it's a decent one. It has Quistis's second Super Soul Break, which gives party quicken black spells, which I haven't been able to test myself, so I don't know how good it is. Could be very good, but I don't know. It has Selfie's second, third AoE heal, which I don't know how good that is either. And then it has a repeat of Renoa's dress. So this one does have 4 mage relics on it, or a healer relic and 3 mage relics on it, but I don't consider the dress very good, and I genuinely don't know how good GF Cerberus or Selfie's relics are. That's why I don't necessarily recommend this one. If you do really like Renoa and want her burst, this is like definitely consider pulling on this because her burst is fine. Excuse me. But after that, the next really good mage banner is not until, where is it? Here, the second Dissidia banner, or the second set of Dissidia banners, because both of these are actually pretty good for mages. For those who don't know, in Japan there were two Dissidia side events, they're not really collaboration events because there was no cross promotion with Dissidia. And since it's Final Fantasy Dissidia made by Squaresoft, released in the US or globally, it's very likely that we will actually get these events. Which is why I'm considering them, and I wasn't considering like Mobius. I do believe we'll get the Dissidia events. Anyway, the Dissidia banners are both actually pretty good for mages because guess what? Most of the villains are mages. I would expect them to be the same if we get a Makia. So Garland's relic here is physical, and Jex is physical, although it's a good mage hat too. But Exdeath, Kuja, this is an old relic for Golbez, but Golbez and Kefka all have mage relics on this banner. Kefka's is a Faithka Haska. This is a Faithka. I don't remember off the top of my head what Exdeath's Super Soul Break is. Almaguess. I know what it is, but I don't remember what it does. I think it's Magic Blink, which is good to have. And this is multi-hit, non-elemental damage. And then the second one is Golbez's Super Soul Break, Kefka's Super Soul Break, Adia's Faithka. This one's a little bit worse. Garland is a Darkness Knight combat character. He's not a mage, unfortunately. Yes, Kefka and Golbez got magic buffs in the Dissidia event. We'll probably get those buffs earlier. But this is another alternative if you happen to want new relics for Kefka, Golbez, or like Adia better than Kefka for your Haska character. This is an alternative. The first banner is stronger for mages, but this one is not at all bad. And then the last banner I consider good for mages, currently to date in Japan, is, well, it's this one, but this is not the correct set of relics for it. DNA pulled a bait and switch on Hope's BSB banner. The correct banner has Hope's BSB, which is by far the best mage BSB to date. It has Vanille's AoE heal, which is okay. It has Sid Raines, who is a new black mage, his Super Soul Break glove, which does Oil Holy, which works for Imperil Holy, which works very well with Hope's BSB. And then it has, there was another mage-oriented relic on it, I thought. Maybe not. But those three relics are very good, and Hope's BSB in particular is incredibly good. This is by far, thanks for the follow, Hugh Jeffner. This is by far the best mage BSB. It is a second generation BSB, by which I mean it has not only damage, but an additional positive effect associated with it. In Hope's case, that positive effect is attacks Holy, which means he does an extra 50% damage with Holy attack. And one of the burst mode attacks is a 4-hit Holy damage / non-elemental damage attack. It does enormous amounts of damage if he's fully buffed. I know this because I have it in hand. Very good. Thank you as well for the follow, Bueller Plays. And it also, as I was saying, it pairs very well with Rains's, because we don't have any Imperial effects yet in Global. We're getting one in the Bosch event. With the very first one is Balthiers. But what Imperil does is it reduces an enemy's resistance, or whatever it hits. It reduces their resistance to that element by 20%. So an enemy that's immune to the element will take 20% damage instead of 0%. An enemy that is resistant will take 70% instead of 50%. An enemy that's neutral will actually take 120% damage and count as hitting a weakness, which means your soul break gauge charges 50% faster. It doesn't help against enemies that are already weak because the cap is 200% damage. But against enemies that don't absorb the element, it will, or don't absorb the element and aren't weak to the element, it will increase your damage by a pretty significant amount. Lightning Memory Crystal is available through the Hall of Rites Skillsum. So this is the final good mage banner currently, although saying that there's only not counting the dual BSB Fest, there's only 2 banners after this, so not much to say there. This is an honorable mention. This is the current best mage support relic. This is Kryle's Super Soul Break, which is Hasteska. Oh, not that one. Excuse me. This one. It's her second Super Soul Break. It's Hasteska, 30% Faceska, and AoE heavy regen. That also increases fire damage if you want to use her for casting fire spells. But all the other relics on this banner, except for Neo Almagest, are physical. So unfortunately, this is not a good mage banner. But if you're building both teams, this banner is absurdly good. And if you happen to pull Kryle's weapon, excellent. You've got a great mage support. Yeah, these double burst banners have 0 mage items, so that's why I'm skipping over them. So that's mage relics and mage banners. So now we know kind of what goes into a mage team. So how do we actually build our mage team? We know the general, the theory, but how do we go about putting that into practice? Let me switch back over to the game. There we go. So let's build a mage team here on stream. This will be my specific mage team because this is my copy of the game, and obviously I'm using my team for this. But I will go over alternatives and what else to look for. So let me remove. I don't know that I can let me remove everybody, but let me remove characters here, and we can build from scratch. No. Oh, well, let me remove everybody. Okay. So mages. I happen to have focus, so Lulu is automatic. This lets me use my Roman Warrior slot for something other than focus. So that's 1 mage down. We want at least 3 mages, damage dealers. I have Renoa's Super Soul Break. I need her. Basically, what you want for your mages are, if you have focus, you bring Lulu. Period. Aside from that, you want to bring characters with Super Soul Breaks if you have them. Just because a mage Super Soul Break is better than a mage Soul Break as far as damage. And it's enough better that none of the characters who have Super Soul Breaks for mages are bad mages. So if you've got a Super Soul Break, bring it. The alternative, or the possible exception is Quistis, because she's got a support one. But she's still, with her Super Soul Break mastered, she's still a good enough mage. So go ahead and bring her. Plus her Soul Break, her Super Soul Break is very good. If you don't have Super Soul Breaks for mages, especially damaging Super Soul Breaks, things to look for are durability. A character like Golbez is extremely durable. He's got a lot of hit points. He's got high defense, high resistance. His magic is on the low side, but hey Timbo, his magic is on the low side, but remember, mages aren't as gear dependent as physical teams. Like 10, 15 points of magic aren't as vital as 10, 15 points of attack. You can generally, especially if you're hitting weaknesses with your spells, in my personal opinion, sacrificing a little bit of magic for a lot of durability is a good trade. Reno is another possible option there, although I'm not as fond of Reno as I am Golbez. Once we get the full version of Vincent, he's a good option. Terra is extremely bulky, at the very least, even if their defense isn't great. It's still better than like DB. What you don't want to use, unless you have a relic for them that dictates otherwise, I would strongly recommend not using DB. Or if you don't have Lulu's hairpin, don't use Lulu either. The reason for that is because they're a lot more fragile than other mage-type characters. DB especially just falls over if you hit it with a full attack. And often DB and Lulu just aren't versatile. They can only use black magic, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in a mage team because you're bringing 3 to 4 mages anyway, so one character can only use black magic is fine. But generally the reason I would recommend not bringing DB if you don't have good relics for him is just because he's going to fall over to a Symphony. Yes, Golbez can use Banishing Strike, he can use Draw Fire or Magic. Golbez is a lot better character than a lot of people give him credit for. And once we get Magical Darkness spells, he can use those as well. Which also does a lot towards making up for his poorer relative magic. For summoners, this is what I was saying earlier, you have either a white mage summoner or a black mage summoner, or someone like Brax, who's kind of both. But if you're bringing one or more summoners, consider if you have an AoE heal for them, then you probably want to give them more mind-focused gear and maybe make them your healer, maybe. Hope with Super Soul Break is absolutely fine. He's got an offensive Super Soul Break to bring you if you've got it. If you have Hope Super Soul Break, he's on your team for a mage team. His magic is a little bit lower than like Lulu or BB, but not enough to matter. And he's got higher, at least higher hit points than some of the other characters as well. Plus, he's got a lot of versatility. Hope can do white magic, he can do black magic, he can do summon. Although, I don't think we have a summon buff yet. Hope will eventually get a buff to summon 5. So he's quite a good character. For your summoners, Terra and Ash, by the way, also get buffs to summon 5. Keep that in mind as you're considering your long-term plans. For your summoners, you basically have the option between full-on offense, Rydia, Trial, Terra-type summoners, or you have Echo, Yuna, Garnet type summoners who you can slap on a heal or a support spell and a summon. Which specifically you use is really, really, really dependent on your entire team composition. Summoners make great off healers or characters with offensive spells and AoE heals because like a lot of times you're going to want your healer to be doing things like casting Shelga or Protectka or curing statuses, etc. on their turn instead of using an AoE heal, or ideally in addition to using an AoE heal. That's one of your, if you've got an offensive summoner with a healing soul break, that's extremely valuable to a team. Or you can just bring these like Echo as your actual healer and give them a summon attack for when they don't need to heal. Both are absolutely viable strategies. if you're not bringing a summon healer, what kind of healers do you want to bring? Whenever you have your best defensive / healing summon for. In my case, I'm going to bring Garnet, because I pulled her Super Soul Break. You can't see it here, but you can see it here. I pulled Wizard God. So, Garnet has a great support Soul Break for me. So I'm bringing her as my healer, as the character designated to carry Jiraja, and whatever support ability is needed. So that covers my healer, 2 of my mages. However, in addition to that healing, I've also got Yuffie's AoE heal, which, as I believe I said earlier in the stream, I consider this the best AoE heal in the game, bar none. Like, it's not even close. And I'll show you why I consider it that. I'm actually going to bring Yuffie along as a mage, who will help with AoE healing duties. And then I am also going to bring a support, because I generally prefer not to be brutalized by enemy bosses if I can help it. I pulled Ramza's AoE heal as well. And Ramza is actually a very, very, very versatile character. So I'm bringing Ramza as my support / kind of flex slot handyman. He can carry Full Breakdown, he can carry Vanishing Strike, he can carry Draw Fire or Magic, and he can cast Ninja attack spells if needed or if wanted. With Grand Armor, again, AoE heal. So this is my current Mage Team. Ramza's slot can also be filled for me by Eiko, because I have her. Like, if I felt that I didn't need Ramza's utility, but I wanted a second AoE heal still, I could slot in Eiko instead. And she can act as a 4th DPS character as well. Remember, she has Summon 5. However, for this specific example, I'm going to bring in Ramza. This is my Mage Team as far as characters are concerned. So how do we... And here, actually, I'm going to show you the practicum for this. I am specifically going to use this party to take on the Blanc Ultimate. So how are we, now that we know which characters we're using, how do we build this team to beat this ultimate? This ultimate has 3 enemies. The enemies have staggered hit point totals, and you want the one with the highest hit point total to die last, which tells me AoEs are a possible option. They all have weak spaces, so you might want to AoE them down entirely, but I'm going to give it a try because I'm confident like that. We'll see how well it works out for me. It also has status effects as a condition, and also you have to apply slow and blind to at least one of the members of the boss fight. So you can gain status effects, and also LeBlanc casts Shield to protect on the whole party at 2 different points in the fight. So I'm going to need a dispel. Excuse me. I'm going to need a dispel effect as well. So those are my general ability guidelines. I don't actually have very much Final Fantasy X mage gear. Matter of fact, as you can see, I don't even have. Oh right, she can't use staves. I know I actually have a staff. I do have one Final Fantasy X relic with magic oriented, but it's more mind oriented. I'm going to give that to Garnet. So instead, I'm going to just equip everyone with my best mage relics. So Renault's going to get that. Yuffie's going to get that. Ramza can use instruments. I pointed out earlier, so he's going to get Kefka's flute. I could also give him Golbez's axe or Terra's sword, because I have those as well. But this one actually has some attacks in the back row, so it's preferable. And then Lulu's just going to get my 7-star Keep of Saints. I pulled very, very hard on Final Fantasy 14 banner, so yeah, I had a 7-star Keep of Saints. Also, these are from pulling extremely hard on the Saz Lightning banner. So these are my 3 generic mage relics. And then, as I was saying, Garnet, who is acting as my single target healer, is going to get the Mind/Magic staff, rod, whatever. For armor, again, I do have a little bit better armor. I'm going to give Rinoa my best magic attack one, because she's got the offensive Super Soul Break, so I want her magic as high as possible. Yuffie is actually going to get the red armor, because she's going to be doing fire damage, and this is plus 20% fire damage. When you can, this is especially useful for mage teams. Any armor which has a boost to elemental damage, especially bracers or hats or light armor with magic on it, but even if it doesn't have any magic on it, armor with a boost to elemental damage is almost always going to be more damage than armor with actual magic stats on it. Like, even if this had 0 magic on it, it would deal more damage than a Wutai headband with 30 magic on it. Not by a whole lot, but it's still better. And this matters even more for ninja spells, because ninja spells scale badly with magic anyway. So the plus 20% damage for them is really good. Ramza is going to get Jex headband, because you can actually use the attack on it. And it's actually better for attack, or almost as good for attack as it is for magic. And then Lulu, I don't believe can wear light armor. Oh, she can. So she gets my wizard armor. And then Garnet is just going to get the best leftover gear, which is a headband. And then go through the same basic process for accessories. Rinoa is my best straight-up damage healer because of the Super Soul Break, so she gets the best magic accessory. I'm going to give this one to someone else because Rinoa doesn't need to resist as much. So she's just going to get a 30 magic accessory. Jex headband has mind and magic because it's a hat instead of a helmet. It's my guess. I don't actually know. Lulu is going to get my next best magic accessory because she's the next best character at using it. And then Ramza actually has better resistance than Yuffie does, so Yuffie's going to go ahead and get the magic and resistance ring. And then Ramza's going to get the crystal orb because it also has attack on it, and again, he's actually going to be using his physical attack a little bit. It's not much. Like, I'm not expecting him to deal a lot of damage with this, but every little bit helps. And then Garnet gets mind stuff because I'm actually not going to use her offensive capabilities in this fight, so she's just going to I'm going to give her major resistance to silence because I do believe Logos can silence in this fight, and it makes her almost immune to it. Not quite. There's like a 3% to 6% chance for it to land with this on. Yes, we're going to do the ultimate now as a practicum just to show kind of how to use a mage team in a fight. For abilities, I am going to try to AoE these guys down. So, Velfor plus Drango. Actually, let me come back to Ramza. Lulu is going to get Ruinga plus Waterja. If you don't know which Jaw spell to use, pick Waterja, because it casts faster by a little bit than all the other Jaw level spells and doesn't have any reduced damage to compensate. It's, in a vacuum, the best 4-star black magic spell for pure DPS. Yuffie is going to take Fire Veil because she has the red armor, so she'll do more damage with fire. And for her second skill, she's going to take Blind, because I need a blind character. I'll probably actually hone this up as well. I want 6 uses on it. Ramza is going to take a ninja magic. Doesn't actually matter which one he uses because he doesn't have any elemental bonuses to these, so he'll take Water Veil because I have more uses on it. Oh, that's right. Ramza can also use Mana Pian. He's not going to, but he's also an alternative for Mana Pian usage. The other ability I'm going to use on Ramza for this fight, I keep hiccuping, is Banishing Strike, because I need to get rid of the Shelga on characters. This is also why I was giving him slight emphasis on attack. It's because I knew I'm using Banishing Strike. It's not going to do an awful lot of damage, but, maybe you think that it counts. And then for Garnet, I'm going to bring Kiraja, and because we also need to slow characters, I'm bringing Sloga. You will note one weakness of this party, which I might have to shuffle things around to rectify. I have no defensive abilities at all. I don't have Shoga, I don't have Protecta, I don't have Breakdowns, I don't have Dances. To compensate, I am going to be using Heroic Harmony as my roaming warrior, because Heroic Harmony acts as, it's not quite as good as Sentinel's Grimoire at reducing enemy damage, but this fight also has an AoE ultimate dispel mechanic, and Heroic Harmony is not affected by that. So it will be on the enemy permanently. That means I won't be having a Basica effect, which is unfortunate, but it's worth giving up in my opinion. Record Materia. Garnet gets one if I want haste right away, and also it provides a resistance for LeBlanc spells. Same for Mako Might on Lulu. I want Focus on right away because it provides a haste and extra resistance for LeBlanc spells. Yuffie is going to get a Striker. She is my AoE healer, my primary AoE healer. Rams is more of a backup. So Yuffie is my primary AoE healer. She's going to get a Striker. It's unfortunate she's not going to be hitting weaknesses with her Ninja Fire Veil, which would really build up her charge quickly with a Striker, but she will still get a pretty decent amount of charge for this, and because it casts so quickly, she'll build up pretty quick. Renoa, once again, she is my primary offensive mage, so she is getting Devotion. And Ramza, if I had Ramza's RM2, I would give it to him because he's also a healer. Unfortunately, that's not available yet, so I'm giving him Impetuous Youth instead, which reduces his resistance but raises his magic. It's not as good because he's the problem with Ramza in this party is I don't have a good spell to give him, or a good recommendatory, to give him. There just really isn't a great option for him at the moment in this party. So I'm basically giving him this. He'll increase his ninja fail damage by a little bit. It's the best option for that. Let's go through and ensure everyone's got the correct soul breaks. Oh, right. I knew there was something I was forgetting. I don't have Ramses heal learned, so unfortunately he has to actually use his armor, which sucks. It gives much worse defensive stats. I'm going to switch things around because of it. I knew I was forgetting something. So he's going to pick this up to get the extra resistance, and Yuffie is going to just take a 30 magic accessory instead. So Ramza keeps his AoE heal. Lulu doesn't need space. She's going to be using focus full time. Yuffie has Clean Tranquil, and I'm not using Leviathan here. I'm going to leave Prayer on just in case I end up wanting it's her turn and I need an AoE heal now. But Divine Guardian is what I'm intending to use her Soul Break on. Prayer, by the way, is from the Mage's staff. That's the other reason why I wanted her to have it. Alright, so that is our party for Ultimate LeBlanc. Oh, right, I wanted to hone Blinda one more time. I'm intending to burn down LeBlanc quickly, so I would prefer to just have that, I'm not as worried about the resistance, and that extra attack could be handy. I don't know, that's definitely a possibility card. It might just be better to use Vow of Vengeance. And in just, with the Celeste event, I believe we get Shadow's MP2. Shadow's record materia for that memory crystal is plus 30% ninja damage, and that would be an excellent alternative as well. That's actually the best ninja attack relic, or RM, Shadow's RM2 or RM3, whichever it is. So 30% ninja damage is huge for ninjas casting spells. Anyway, this is the party I'm going to use. Hopefully I actually have a Heroic Harmony. Double check to make sure I've got the missions right. Flow Blind, Ormi left. Ormi has enough hit points, so AoEs don't hurt doing this. Let's see, do we have a Heroic Harmony? We do. Okay, excellent. So this is what I'm going to be using. Normally, in this case, I would actually use the Stone Skin because it is a better defensive ability, but because if I don't kill a block fast enough, she'll dispel Stone Skin. I'm just going to do this instead. Heroic Harmony is actually a stronger debuff than Goddess Spell is. Goddess Spell does damage, but Heroic Harmony actually is a slightly better debuff. Alright, here we go. Hopefully I don't fuck this up. So, the most important thing with a mage fight, especially against multiple enemies like this, is getting off on a good foot. What do I mean by that? I mean getting defenses up quickly. I would actually much have preferred that Yuffie wasn't the one that went first there, because I would have liked to blind Logos, but I needed Heroic Harmony off. Oh yeah, and by the way, these bosses are unique in that each one has a immunity to a break, which sucks. Alright, so... Oh, man. Actually, that's alright, that's alright. So Ormi has drawn fired. That means that all single target attacks will now hit Ormi. That's fine, I wanted to blind him anyway. I would have preferred to blind Logos first, but can't always get what you want. Yeah, here sucks because I want to get rid of that haste on. Come on! I hate that I can't target when. Oh man, I'm on Metal Speed 2 as well. And this is why I wanted Logos killed or blinded first, because he can just wreak havoc on your team. Fortunately, this is why Drains is good. She's full of health again. Need to send somebody to hit Ramza, though. Actually, I need to blind Logos here. Here, hit Ramza. Heal. Woke up Lulu, but isn't quite going to kill her. The heal will actually... man, I missed on Logos. That's a pain. The heal will heal up Lulu. Blindiga again. Ruinga. Balfour. Watermail's fine here. Okay, good. Got Logos blinded. Hopefully that means that his Russian roulette will miss now. And this damage is good, because it's not hitting a weakness, but what it is it's very fast. It builds up charge quickly, which brings up my AoE heals. Okay, everyone's back to full health. Good. I'm actually going to slow other characters now, because I don't need that heal. She heals, that's fine. That's actually a wasted turn for her, so I'm happy to see it. Alright, this is going to put her under 50%, which means she's going to rebuff. It also means that she switches to her more dangerous attack pattern. Fortunately, I can Vanishing Strike here and get rid of her buff again. Balfour, Ruinga, Fire Veil, Heal. I'm going to get off a no love loss, which is the Dispel, but that's why I brought Heroic Harmony instead of Stone Skin for Sentinel's Grimoire. So anyway, the first thing you want to do, like I said, is to establish control at the start of the fight, get all your defensive abilities up. After that, the main thing to do with a... wow, that sucks. With a mage team like this, is not lose a character to a blinded target. Like, that was honestly kind of bullshit. Alright, here's all our buffs going away. And Ramza dying. Alright. So that's a reset, unfortunately. I had terrible luck there. Logos hit 3 out of 4 of his attacks, and then Orme hit his attack through blind. That's terrible luck. Hopefully this next attempt goes a little smoother than that. Heroic Harmony might have baited it yet. That's absolutely quite possibly what happened there, or part of what happened there. The bad luck was also terrible, but yes. Note to self, apply Heroic Harmony when LeBlanc is almost dead. Alright, this is pretty good for bars. This off, get that off, focus. Get Logos blinded. And I actually screwed up here. I should have had her Heiska. Is this going to trigger? No, it's not. Alright. Yes. Great. Good job, Yuki. However, LeBlanc is slowed, which is good. now he's got fired, which is actually bad, because again, I really want Logos blinded. Guardian, blind, Ruinga, Water Veil. Alright, Army blinded, that takes off draw fire. I really need to get, oh god, I need to get him blind ASAP. If he hits Garnet again, he's dead, and that's a wipe. So I need to slow him as well, because he's hasted. Yeah, Water Veil, Ruinga. Okay, so he's blind now, which means most of his attacks will miss, not all of them. And now we just pour on the damage as fast as we can. So far, so good. And yeah, this is great. I really love her using White Wind. Summon buff would have made this fight a lot easier. Balfour would be doing a lot more damage. Summon buff will be really good for Mage Teams. It's basically the next big thing for Mage Teams. Okay, expel her again. Oh my god! I could have sworn that respected blind. It's supposed to be a physical attack, so why is it hitting? I don't understand. Need to... Oh my god! Stop it! Need to reapply... Heroic Harmony here. We're gonna get a no love lost soon. I'm actually gonna go ahead and clear Tranquil here, which is gonna turn out to be extremely good. And nope, Clear Tranquil does not actually have 0 cast time. It has a 10 millisecond cast time, which means if you use it at the wrong moment, it will actually kind of backfire on you, or not go first anyway. Alright, here's the Heroic Harmony, so that we hopefully won't get wrecked like we did last time. Okay, that just does not respect blind at all. Quite unfortunate, frankly. And he doesn't quite have Tailwind up. Hopefully this will kill LeBlanc, so she doesn't know love lost. Please? Yes, okay, good. That's very good. Now I need to focus on Logos, because he's by far the most dangerous character currently. Fortunately, he's currently slowed. Oh my god. Yeah, that is true that they have great communities. However, I wasn't certain that I was going to get was going to beat out No Love Lost, so I didn't want to use Stone Skin because I didn't want it to fall and me be completely vulnerable to damage. Yeah, native focus is absolutely a huge deal for Mage teams. I need to get Wormy blinded so I can kill off logos. Although actually, nope, that did it. Okay. Yeah, you're right, Holy and High Wind. In retrospect, you're absolutely right. Well, it mitigates that attack. No one ever accused Ormy of being a good tank Electreon. I need to get him blinded. Actually, I should have done Clear Tranquil there. I didn't realize it was charged up. Alright, good. He's blind again. So, once you have control of the fight, the next thing is just ensuring that no one gets too low, and if they do, you've got a heal ready for them. Mages are a lot more fragile than physical characters, so you really have to kind of work at it and ensure that they aren't like that's why Drained is so good, is because it lets your mage kind of sustain himself. If you ever get stuck with a summon, that'll also be very good for the same thing. So that's a Mage team in action. This is actually not even an ideal circumstance for a Mage team because AoE bosses, especially AoE bosses with weak phases, are really a weak point for Mage teams because you've got a lot more incoming damage at the start of the fight. And because if you AoE them down, a lot of times you hit multiple weak phases at once, which can really rip into your team like it did the first time, and almost the second time here. But I wanted to do this fight with a Mage team to show that despite Shout, Mage teams are still perfectly fine. You could still complete pretty much any content with one unless it's something like the Combat Abyss that says no mages allowed. Ooh, Summon Orb, nice. So that's what I've got for my Mage meta theory crafting. Does anyone have any questions about anything? Any topics, suggestions for topics for next week's theory crafting? Anything along those lines? Anything that wasn't clear? Suggestions for improvement? This was kind of a prototype, pilot type thing, so I'm not sure like if I talked too much about things everybody knew anyway, that sort of thing. Oh, Vincent. The reason why Vincent is the best mage. Okay. First, if we get him, with his buffs and hacks, if we don't get him with his buffs right away, he's very weak. He started out in Stan as the worst defensive character in the game. He had absolutely trash can tier defense and resistance. It just made him terrible. Once he gets, and he also only had Black 5 Summon 4, or maybe even Black, just Black 5. Like he was really bad off release. Shortly thereafter, he picked up Darkness 5, and then once they buffed him, he gets more hit points, more defense, more resistance to make him at least able to take a hit. He has almost as many hit points as Terra, which is pretty good. And his defense and resistance aren't great after the buff, but they're at least usable. He picks up Darkness 5, which is the best offensive single target honable spell in the game. He also picks up Support 4, which, hey, I mean, people use, like, it's entirely possible to throw a breakdown on Vincent. Essentially, you have a mage gun for him, so you can do it from the back row, and do reasonable damage. And then, so he has Black 5, Darkness 5, Summon 4. That's an extremely powerful skill set. His magic is competitive. His hit points, defense resistance are at least usable. His hit points are way better than BB. His defense is better than BB. His resistance is way worse than BB. But in most cases, he's going to be tankier than BB is, with much better skill set. And then he has a completely unique soul break. On the second banner for Vincent's event is Vincent's Cloak, which seems at first like a really shitty mage soul break because it's 4 physical ranged hits with an attack buff. But the thing is the attack buff, it's an attack and magic buff, which, like Sandspike said, no one else has, and it's unique status ID, which means it stacks with everything. It's plus 35% magic that stacks with every other AoE buff in the game. So even in isolation, he's very good if you have his cloak. And judging by Japan's celebration banners, if they realize his cloak is very good, it may well come back on our celebration banners. If you get his cloak, he is by far the best single, like, by himself mage in the game. If you have Faceca and Hairpin, you can use under magic buff. Electreon, there are bosses coming up that have 4,000 resistance. You want to, especially if you're using multi-hit attacks like Summon and Dark Zone, yes, you definitely want another magic buff. And here's the thing to note. Remember how I said Orthros was kind of fell by the wayside because summons got the summons are going to get multi-hit buffs? Well, that's true. It's also possible that you will cap their damage still if you have 3 stacking magic buffs. You're not going to cap Orthros' damage. If you do pull Vincent's Cloak, you may very, very strongly consider honing up Orthros for him because he will blow something up with it. So that's why I consider Vincent the best mage. Other good mages, very, very good mages, are Kuja is good, Exteth is good, Golbert is good in a very tanky Darkness user way. Anyone you have a super soul break for is good. Anyone you have a burst soul break for is good. Hope, if you pull his BSB, is the best offensive caster in the game, just because his BSB is so incredibly good. What will be the next banner that a lot of us should focus on, since Final Fantasy Tactics is huge? I'll tell you right now, there are no banners that are as good for mages as Tactics was for physical characters. The next, and probably only, really, really, really incredibly good mage banner is Kuja 2. The second Kuja banner has Kuja's In Dark Glove, which makes him an extremely good Darkness caster. It has... I'm scrolling up to find it, hold on. It has Garnet's Wizard Rod, which you saw me use there in that ultimate fight. Night Sandspike. Yeah, I did the ultimate already, Epic Wander. It has Garnet's Wizard Rod, which is a good red mage relic that has both magic and mind. It has a great soul break. It has Aiko's Fairy Flute, or... No, well, whichever one is her AoE heal plus Haska. It has 2 Haska relics on it. And it has a generic elemental damage up black mage weapon. That is probably the best mage banner you're going to see for quite a while. the Kuja banner, the next Final Fantasy IX event, second banner on that. Test Paul. My Final Fantasy Tactics pulls were satisfactory. Yes, I did not wail for Tactics. I didn't spend any money at all on Tactics. I did 350 pulls. First 50 pull was 3 off-banner relics and Defender. The second one was Spellbinder. The third one was an off-banner relic, 2 Kaiser Shields, and Grand Armor. Let's see, any other questions here? That looks like all the questions. So I'm going to go ahead and close out. No, actually, here, let me ask a specific question to you guys. What did you think of the segment? Was it helpful for you? Were there things you wish I'd covered in more detail? That sort of thing? Dan, that's really good polls. That's basically exactly everything you'd want. I got lucky with my off-banner pulls. I got Red Armlet and Oathveil, both of which are elemental damage armors. And I think I just completely lost. Yeah. Okay, cool. Glad to hear people like it. I'm gonna be doing this, planning to do this every week. Most likely, it's going to be Tuesdays at 10, like this was. So definitely, if you like this, plan to tune in next week. And that was Theorycraft 2 hours. I guess we'll call it our 2 hour segment. That's about what it took.